Hi folks, this is video 171. The title is Bars and Stars or Hammer and Sickle. As most people who understand the meaning of an American, I've been doing a lot of thinking about the future of this country. I'm not sure how I would react if some butthead called me a racist or a white supremacist. Racism is not natural. It has to be taught. Unfortunately, today it is being taught most everywhere. Except for a few, namely Al Sharpton, Louis Farrakhan, and Jesse Jackson, it was practically non-existent. That is, until Obama came on the scene. I've worked with the majority of the nationalities on the planet. The basic everyday person wants the same thing everywhere. Basically a better life for their kids, food, shelter, and warmth. Having grown up in the 50s and 60s, I watched the race riots and the opposition peaceful demonstrations led by Dr. Martin Luther King. His dream of his children and grandchildren being judged by their character and not by the color of their skin, in my opinion, was almost complete. That is practically erased now. It must be stopped. As I stated, I watched the riots, etc. on TV. The only time you saw a black man in Scranton, he was a Greyhound bus driver from New York City making a stop at the station in downtown Scranton. Having worked with many nationalities, I learned firsthand from folks whose relatives were victims of actual racism in the South during the 50s and 60s. People were just outright hung, or worse. Some had their feet and hands bound and hung by either hands or feet from a tree branch. If it was a man, his penis was cut off. A woman, they cut off her boobs. The people put through these atrocities were not just black. White sympathizers got similar treatments. If the person survived these dismemberments, strips similar to bacon were cut and removed from their backs, from the shoulders to the butt cheeks. The strips were pulled off with pliers. Another treatment, a bat, 2x4 big stick, was used to break every bone in a person's body. Whips and chains were also used. And last but not least, the person was tied to a vehicle and dragged down the road until nothing was left but the rope. Obama and Biden stirred the pot steadily during their 8 years in the White House. They cheered gay pride, upheld black criminals, and belittled all police. All of this has continued to escalate. The one good thing of the COVID-19 two-year fiasco is that parents got to see what the kids are being taught. There is now a wave of parental uprising crossing the country. The southern border is a disaster. Too bad we can't station some snipers along the river. When the raft is empty, shoot the guy paddling back to Mexico for another load. At least sink the raft. Need to send a message somehow. I can't blame folks for staying away from jobs or making more from Biden's extra $300 per week. What these folks haven't thought about is that the longer they stay out, the longer their employer struggles to stay in business. When the money runs out, many will show up at their workplace to find they are no longer in business because of no employees to help run the business. I received a video during the winter covering info about Chinese businessmen buying ranches in Oklahoma for 2 to 3 times their worth. Also, the Chinese are also paying off loans and mortgages in the Bahamas in order to get enough land for a military base. The Chinese are taking similar actions in Africa. I recently heard on a good news channel that Russia has teamed up with China to supply Iran with weaponry they can use to supply their surrogates. Namely, that's Hamas, Hezbollah, and smaller similar groups. Israel is and has to gear up for a coming war. Our stupid administration will be the cause of the next major war. It may be the last war. The Islamists will not hesitate to use a nuke on anybody. The racism here will eventually cause civil war. The vision or scenario I see coming is this. Blacks versus whites, the gangs, MS-13, Cribs, Bloods, and the cartels join in. We don't have any idea who or what is crossing the southern border. They have captured folks from almost every nation, and because of the current rules that seem to override actual law, the Border Patrol may not even bother showing up for work. To think there are no radical Islamists getting across, and they don't have a plan to attack us somewhere, is just ludicrous. If we get distracted getting into a protracted civil war with all these groups, I can see the Chinese hitting us from the west and south, the Russians from Alaska and the east through Boston and New York. In a couple of months, we will commemorate 9/11. 20 years ago, just a couple days after, there were flags on every house and lots of cars. When firemen, ambulances, or police came down the street in the cities, people turned and cheered them. Now they are all being ambushed, seriously wounded, or killed. All cops are racist now, according to the leftist communist leaders. It's not just people who are racist. Now it's roads, types of food, hairdos, clothes, everything. There is no lifeguard at the gene pool. I think it has dried up and become stagnant. Common sense is rare. People have not been taught how to think, but what to think for some time. Black Lives Matter are ripping off donors by the millions, but they still are rioting in democratic cities, burning down their own businesses and homes. Stupid, stupid, stupid people by the millions at this point. A lot of them have filled the ranks of the mainstream media as well. I haven't heard anything lately about Antifa. I think at this point they're concentrating on burning Portland to the ground. The gangs of Chicago are doing a fine job of killing each other. It's too bad there are innocents being killed as well. Back in the 1800s, the procedure of tar and feathers worked well for getting rid of worthless mayors, councilmen, etc. Maybe it should be brought back. That will give Don Lemon something to whine and cry about. Might work for the mainstream media, too. Kamala Harris has proved already that she couldn't lead a brownie pack, let alone this country. We have a racist president, a vice president who used her womanly talents to get ahead. Pelosi and Schumer need to get run out of office. Republican leadership isn't that much different. I pray that either Jesus comes back or he gives us the backing to get through the next 3.5 years. I'm not sure there are enough Americans left. Lord, I hope so. Every person who enlisted into the military took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We took another pledge as well, at least in the Army. I am an American soldier. I am a warrior and a member of a team. I serve the people of the United States, and I always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life. I am an American soldier. I don't believe there's an expiration date for either of these. I know I covered a tough subject here, but the people in the country is going to have to decide. Anyway, as always, I wish everyone all the best.